All right, well, good afternoon and welcome everyone. I'm Lisa Reichert. I am the Career and Professional Development Lead with People and Organization Development, part of Berkeley People and Culture. And I'm thrilled to bring to you our second offering of the Now Encore series. We did our debut offering of the Now Encore series last fall, and we're kicking off our second series with this wonderful workshop, Redefining Rest and Productivity. And wow, how many can relate to, needing to focus more on rest and how to redefine it. I know I can relate. So I am thrilled to introduce our speaker for this afternoon's workshop, Marissa McCool. Marissa is the Executive Director within the School of Public Health Wallace Center. And Marissa has worked at the School of Public Health for 4 years, leading workforce development, prior to which she worked at the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. And Marissa is leaving UC Berkeley to focus on her coaching business full-time, where she helps overworked and stressed out public health professionals find more time for themselves and to find more joy in their lives. And so I am thrilled that Marissa is spending time with us to share her expertise on this really important theme of redefining rest and productivity. So Marissa, welcome, thank you, and I will let you take it from here.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Before we start, I want to encourage everyone, let's just take a group breath, a deep breath in, and a deep breath out. And I'm doing this because there's a lot going on right now between the hurricane, the flooding in New York, what's happening in Texas, and the Caldor fire, which my family has had to evacuate from. So I think all of us have a lot going on, not just with our work, but in the world. And it's really important to center ourselves. And I also want to encourage you to make an active decision right now, whether you're going to focus and be present or be distracted during the presentation. Many times when we get on webinars or workshops, we end up on email, on websites. We think we have a lot to do and we want to do both. But really doing that quote unquote multitasking burns a lot of mental energy. And I find it's best to make a decision. Do you have the time to be present? And if so, do that. Turn your email off, turn your phone over. And if you don't, there is a recording available. So I would just like to encourage.
Good morning.
And if folks can mute themselves, that'd be great. To just make a decision. And I encourage you to take this hour and a half to really focus on what you're learning today around rest and productivity. Turn your emails off, turn your phones over, and just be present. So with that, to start us off, I am so glad you're here and I'd love to learn a little bit more about who you are. So if you are able to, please put in the chat box who you are, what department you're in, what's your role, just a little bit about you. So not only I can learn, but we all can learn a little bit about each other and who's in the room today. And I'll read some out so folks who maybe are unable to read them, I can share. So we have Yasmin from the School of Public Health, Division Manager. Welcome, Yasmin, who I know, appreciate. Andrea Rex, Assistant Dean for Student Services. Michelle Meyer. Oh, this is going fast. Center of Occupational Environmental Health. Allison Henry, Chief Information Security Officer. We have some folks, academic advisors, IT, the Be Well at Work, athletic study, intake advisor, sponsored projects office. Wow, quite a diverse crowd. I am so excited to see that. We have folks from all over campus, all different roles. I'm really excited about this. So I appreciate everyone sharing a little bit about where you're coming from on campus. So we're actually going to start with an activity today. And the reason we're going to start with an activity is to get out of your brain where you're coming from on your perspectives of rest and productivity. And there's no right or wrong answer here. This is just for you. So Lisa shared, it in the chat box, also in the BCal and in the email, a workbook. And we're going to do activity 1. You're going to have about 5 to 7 minutes to complete on your own. I encourage you, if you can, to either write it down, your answers down, or type it in the workbook, or if you do audio notes, whatever version you need in order to answer the questions. And I do want to note the page numbers are incorrect, so my apologies. It's pages 2 and 3. So it's just activity 1. And I'll go ahead and give everyone about 5 to 7 minutes to do that, and we'll just do that on our own and come back together. Okay, so we'll have about 1 minute to wrap up. So wrap up where you're at. We come back in about a minute. Okay, everyone, let's come back together. If you're not finished, that's totally okay. Not a problem at all. You have access to this worksheet and can finish it out later. So if you're comfortable, this is not a requirement at all, but if you'd like to share, put in the chat box what you wrote about what is rest for you. Please go ahead and do that. See what folks, there's no right or wrong answer here. We're just seeing what our brains think, what our definitions currently are. And I'm sure we share some of them. So if you're comfortable, feel free to drop in the chat box. And if you didn't get to the rest section, you can just put it in there, your thoughts right now. So time and space to relax. Yeah, I think that's a common one. Sleeping. Yes, that's a very common one. And doing things without fixed goals for pleasure, art. That's okay if you did the productivity one, totally fine. We'll get to productivity in a second. Taking a break from work, sleep, not doing anything, doing what you want to, not what you have to. Sleeping, lots of sleeping. I think folks aren't getting enough sleep maybe right now. Letting your thoughts and feelings go where they will, like clouds in the sky. Yes. Yes. These are great. Accomplishing a defined task within a specific time frame. Great. Okay. Thank you everyone for sharing. So what's going to be coming on the screen are some Post-it notes. So for those of you who are looking at the screen, what is on the slide are 6 Post-it notes, so squares that are blue, and they have different things on there that we often think about with rest. So getting enough sleep. Many of you mentioned sleep. Also, going to the spa. Those are things marketing definitely messages to us about rest. Meditating, yoga, watching TV, going on vacation or travel. These are common things we think of and definitely are messaged to us as what is rest. And I want you just to ponder this. You don't have to agree, just to open your mind and get curious. What if rest was not an action or a set of actions? What if rest was simply a state of mind and you could be in rest no matter what you are doing? What if rest is available to you no matter your action? Just open to that curiosity. Don't have to agree or say this is right, but just let your mind be curious about that. So same thing, let's talk about productivity. If you're comfortable, put in the chat box what you wrote for your definitions of productivity or what counts as being productive. I know they were flipped in the workbook, productivity first and then rest, but throughout this presentation, we'll be talking about rest kind of first to set the stage. Any thoughts on what's productivity? What does being productive look like? Checking things off the to-do list, accomplishing things I set out to do, getting as much valuable stuff done when you're focused and making progress on your goals, working in a focused way, checking to-do lists off, getting email to 0. Yeah. Feeling engaged, being complete, detailed, outputs, outcomes, not wasting time. Yes, these are all very common beliefs we have about productivity. Thank you all for sharing. So same thing that's going to come up on the screen is 6 sticky notes. And these list out things that we commonly think of when we talk about productivity. So getting everything on the to-do list done. Many of you said that. finishing a big project on time, getting all your work done early, making time for all the things, right? The work, the kids, the working out, the personal time, working out 5 days a week, right? And finishing all the household chores. These are just some common examples many of us go to when we think about being productive. Again, I just want you to be curious here and ponder this. What if productivity does not really exist in this world? What if productivity is a belief system that prevents us from getting things done? And I know that might seem controversial, so just stick with me. Today, it's just about being open. You do not have to agree with me. You can take it or leave it. Just get curious with some of the things I'm presenting. And if it's useful to you, take it with you. So beliefs about rest and productivity. These are beliefs that many of us hold consciously or unconsciously. Being productive will help me feel relaxed and accomplished. Being productive feels good. Rest helps me refuel and recharge. These all sound reasonable and probably sound very familiar, and they might even sound harmless, but I'm going to walk through all of these a little bit more in detail and see how these beliefs result in us not only not resting and burning ourselves out, but having to continue to believe that rest is kind of out of your control, that it's something you have to work to obtain. So the belief being productive will help me feel relaxed and accomplished. So many of us, and this is me, this is how I got into coaching, is I needed a lot of coaching on my thoughts about productivity and rest. We have this vision in our heads that if on Sunday we get our whole list of chores done, we'll feel so relaxed going into the week. We imagine if we get everything scheduled we had to do in a work day, that we'll feel so accomplished by 5 p.m. And it sounds so nice and pleasant. And when we envision it, we feel so good just thinking about that possibility. But when we believe that being productive will make us feel a certain way, this is burning us out. And that is because being productive, the act of getting things done, does not create your feelings. How is it that you may only feel accomplished and proud if you get all your work done, finish the laundry, cook dinner, meal prep, but your partner can feel amazingly productive and proud just from finishing a crossword puzzle? How is it that you might only feel proud if you got all 10 things done on your to-do list, but you have a friend who feels proud even if they only get 2 out of 10 things done on their to-do list? How is it that when you tell your team member you didn't get much done this week and you're so stressed because of it, because you had so many meetings, and they say, oh yeah, I didn't get a lot done either. I had a ton of meetings, but I'm not worried about it. I feel good about what I did. It's because the amount of things we do or do not do, the types of tasks we do or do not do, don't create how we feel. You can decide to do nothing and feel great about it. You can decide to do a lot of things and feel great about it. And I bet all of you have had both of these experiences at some point, right? Where you do nothing all day and you feel so good because you're telling yourself that's what you wanted to do. And same with getting a lot done. When we believe productivity delivers how we feel, what happens is when 5 p.m. runs around and we don't magically feel accomplished from what we did that day, we tell ourselves we didn't get enough done and we need to work till 8 p.m. so we can. When Friday hits and you don't feel relaxed, you tell yourself you have to get all the house chores done on the weekend in order to feel relaxed. And so we end up burning ourselves out, trying to seek contentment and pride and happiness and relaxation outside of ourselves, from our to-do list, from being quote unquote productive. And when I present this, many times people say, well, being productive feels good. When I'm productive, I feel really good. And we have this kind of unexamined rationale that it's just innate. Intrinsically, we feel really good when we get a lot done. It's just the way it is. It's the way we were designed. But I would argue that's not true. Productivity doesn't feel good because you get a certain amount of things done. It's because you're finally nice to yourself. When you get everything done on your list, you give yourself a mental break. You stop telling yourself you need to do more. Stop telling yourself you didn't do enough. Stop going on that mental list, kind of drill sergeanting yourself, telling yourself you have so much to do. It's not because productivity delivers those feelings. It's because your thoughts change. The way you're thinking about yourself changes. The way you're thinking about your time changes. The way you talk to yourself changes. And here's the thing. You don't have to wait to get a certain amount of things done to change the way you're thinking about it. You can give yourself a break whenever you want. You never have to tell yourself you have more to do or you didn't do enough. You can always decide to tell yourself you're proud of yourself, you feel accomplished, you're content with what you've done, no matter what it is. When we believe productivity makes us feel good, then what happens is we get a lot done and then we feel good for a short amount of time because we've gotten enough done. And then our brain goes back into this pattern it has, into telling ourselves we have to get more done. We have to do more. And this cycle starts all over again when we're chasing this feeling that we think comes from being productive. When you stop believing productivity makes you feel good, you can create the contentment, the happiness, the pride for yourself with the way you're thinking, with how you're talking to yourself, no matter what you do. And then the last one, rest helps us refuel and recharge ourselves. So this belief implies that rest comes after exertion, after being productive. It implies that the purpose of rest is to bounce back from the exhaustion of getting work done and to prepare to do more work. But I'm going to argue the only reason we're exhausted from trying to be productive is because we believe we have to be productive to feel good. So we're constantly being that drill sergeant in our heads to ourselves about getting work done. And also we withhold rest from ourselves while we are working because we believe we have to wait till we get it done to rest. The way we, and when I say we, not just us in this room, society at large talks about rest is like we're a hybrid electric car. Like once you drive a certain amount of miles, you need to be charged. And if you run out of charge because you're driving for so long or so fast, we'll stop for gas. And the fuel we're using isn't love or nourishment, isn't pride or appreciation. It's often shame and judgment and dread and anxiety. Rest is not a refuel or a recharge. Rest is not a car. We are not a car. Waiting until we run out of gas to fill up on rest is what is burning many of us out. What if rest was your status quo instead? What if rest was the priority and not the afterthought? Then rest wouldn't need to be anything. Rest would be the baseline. What we have been taught about productivity is that productivity matters more than rest. Productivity comes before rest. Being productive makes you a worthy person. You are valued if you're productive, and being productive is a measure of worth. On the flip side of that, what we have been taught about rest is we can only rest once we have accomplished something. Once we rest, we can be more productive. Rest is not given, it's earned or deserved. Rest is celebratory or relief, and we have to justify rest. And many of these messages we get implicitly, meaning maybe they're not delivered exactly this way, but that is the message behind them. And so where do these beliefs come from? I want you to think about where you normally hear, what context you normally hear the word productivity used. I was so productive this week. I wasn't very productive this week. And what's the context you usually hear the word rest used in? You look tired. You should go home and get some rest. Did you get enough rest last night? Or let's say in the workout space, your muscles need time to recover. Make sure to get some rest tonight. We're taught rest is sleep. Rest is a period of doing nothing. maybe only after an intense period of physical or mental exertion. Rest is a rare gift we give ourselves, often through commercial splurges, like a spa day. We're taught that productivity is binary. You either are productive or you're not. You either get it all done or you didn't. You either got enough done or you didn't. Our beliefs, our unconscious beliefs about rest and productivity come from all around us. We get, and what's on the screen here is an image of a brain, an icon drawing of a brain. And what you see poking out of the brain are different receptors that go to different parts of society: school, parents, religion, media, books, oppressive systems. This is to represent the fact that we get thousands of messages that our brains internalize as our own thoughts and beliefs. And not just that, but we internalize them as if they're truths. And the messages come from everywhere: media, school, books, the internet, and from systems of oppression: patriarchy, white supremacy, even capitalism. So for example, if you hear the message, "You're an unworthy person if you don't get everything done on your to-do list," most of us, most of you would go, of course that's not true. If we saw that on the headline of a news article, you would scoff and be like, that's ridiculous. But if we hear messages like news articles saying how to get more done in less time, or how to balance it all, being a working mom, we don't scoff at that. We might even be intrigued. We might even read that article. When we hear our coworkers talking about how they didn't get enough done, we internalize that. When we have our supervisor question our request for PTO, we internalize that. We internalize a lot of direct and indirect messages about rest and productivity. And when we hear messages, when we see messages, our brain internalizes them. Our brains take the messages we receive and digest them, and then speaks them back to us in our head and in our voice and our way of saying them. And it happens in a tricky way. So for all of you, if I asked you if you think employees shouldn't be allowed to take breaks throughout the day, you would probably say no, that they need to be able to take breaks. Everyone has the right to take breaks. Or if I said staff shouldn't take vacation because it burdened others on the team, you probably would disagree. But how many of you don't eat lunch because you think you have too much to do, or you work through your lunch? How many of you don't get up to get water because it will disrupt your work, or wait until the absolute last second to take a break to go to the bathroom? How many of you rarely take your paid time off? Or when you put in a request for PTO, you have a thought in your mind that has to be for a good reason. You can't just take a random Friday off for no reason. You need to have a justification. Or when you do take vacation, you worry about how much work is going to pile up and how much you'll have to do afterwards. We get a lot of messages about productivity and rest that we internalize, that our brain rephrases, that says to us in our own voice in a way we believe deeply. And these internalized messages, these thoughts in our brain, they drive not only how we feel, but our actions to burnout and to not take rest. And this is why we have to become conscious of what we're believing and what we're thinking and question it. We can work to undo these beliefs. We can change our relationship with rest and productivity. We can be more conscious of the messages our brain takes in moving forward. So I'm going to walk through a few examples from thinking about the systems we get messages from. So first, I want to briefly touch on neoliberalism and higher education. I'm going to explain it. You don't need to have an MBA to understand. I'm not an expert in this by any means, but I think it's really important to know as you work on university campuses. Neoliberalism is essentially the favor of a free market. So in the current context of higher education, the idea is that higher education functions now with the driving force of it being a free market, whereby higher education is less funded by the government, which we've all experienced in California. However, higher education, the supply, is in higher demand, which we're also seeing now. but the cost of delivering the product, of delivering the education is higher. So this opens up a financial gap that needs to be filled. And unintentionally, the way the universities respond to this and the systems of universities impact how those who work on university campuses think and function. And specifically, I'm going to talk about staff today. I'm a staff, you're all a staff, but it does affect every kind of subpopulation on campus as well in different ways. But as you know, there's hierarchical nature on campus, specifically for staff, and then for groups or individuals who are marginalized. So a staff person, and I've seen this a lot with student services, have a conscious or unconscious belief that it's their responsibility to make sure the program or the school succeed. And if they don't, then there's going to be some sort of failure. And we hear messages such as, well, we need more students to fund the school, but we don't have enough money to fund more staff. We hear, well, you need to just learn how to do more with less. These messages, direct or indirect, impact us. We also have some other messages around rest. To only take vacation or rest at certain time points during the year that align with the university priorities. Think about curtailment, think about summer vacation. But how many of you, depending on what department you work on, struggle if you want to take a vacation when it's hiring season, when orientation, and you feel that you cannot? There's a lot of ways higher education has evolved to function this way. And the messages staff receive specifically about rest. Yes, we get paid time off and many fields don't, and that is a great thing. But it doesn't mean that the messages we receive about paid time off don't impact our relationship to rest. We receive a lot of messages about taking PTO during less busy times of the year, as I said prior. And also I want you to think about the social norms on campus. Sending and receiving emails at any time of day, even on weekends. For example, faculty and students have a very different kind of structure of their time. And so sending emails on nights and weekends, that's normalized for them. For staff, who many of whom try to stick to a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, when we're receiving those messages in the nights and weekends, that impacts our beliefs about productivity and rest. We internalize these messages and they impact our actions. The other part I want to talk about when it comes to systems is the fact that we live in a society with the patriarchy, with white supremacy, and with other forms of oppression, from all of the forms of isms and phobias, ableism, fat phobia, homophobia, transphobia, etc. And these systems send messages to everyone about rest and productivity. And they send messages that for some, rest is easily earned or deserved. And for some, you have to earn rest and it's going to be harder for you. It sends messages that you have to prove something to the world about your ability or worth or value to get rest, and not just for yourself, but on behalf of your whole community. Or message two, that some people deserve rest and others do not. And I think the concept of being productive as we know it today, which essentially came during the Industrial Revolution, in our society and culture in modern day has become and been used as a more capitalistic tool that leverages these messages from oppressive systems of proving individual worth in order to keep some people producing high value outcomes while not resting and burning out for others who get to rest and not burn out. So for example, many of you are probably familiar with the racial and gender pay gaps. Not only do people of color or women or trans or non-binary folks get paid less for the same work, they receive messages that in order to make the same or make more than their white cis male counterparts, they have to work harder, work more. These messages are both direct and indirect, and we internalize them, and they drive our overworking and withholding rest, in many ways unconsciously. Another example specific to universities. So on UC Berkeley's campus, staff compared to ladder rank faculty are comprised of a higher percentage of women, LGBTQ+ folks, disabled people, and people of color. Yet 85% of faculty are tenured, meaning they have job protection, and only 32% of staff are represented and have job protection. Faculty salaries are much higher. Many faculty don't have to formally report or request PTO. They can take summers off, they have sabbaticals, they have other perks such as mortgage loans through the university at very low rates. Now, I'm not pointing this out, and I want to be very clear to say that faculty are terrible and they don't work hard and they don't deserve those things. That is not what I'm saying at all. And I'm not saying faculty don't have their own equity issues and they don't deal with unhelpful messages about rest and productivity, because certainly they do. Remember, this is a system issue, right? We're talking about the system. What I'm saying is, given the makeup of staff and how higher education now functions in more the free market manner, right? The supply and the demand, staff receive a lot of messages, implicit and explicit, about productivity and rest, related to our worth and value to the university compared to the worth and value of faculty and students to the university. So, for example, many of you who work in student services probably have seen that there is some messaging around, well, faculty bring in money through grants, students bring in money through tuition. And so there is kind of a disregard of that balance. But as you know, universities cannot run without staff. There is over 8,000 staff members at UC Berkeley compared to 1,500 ladder rank. So these messages we receive, they really impact how we think about our worth and our value, but also about rest and productivity. And I'm sharing all that both as context, but both for you to see where these messages might come from. There are systems and structures that exist outside of us, like the patriarchy, like the structure of the university. And the messages those systems and structures send do impact our thinking. We may not be able to change those systems or structures yet or alone, right? But we can change the way we think about productivity and rest. We can work to undo our internalized beliefs about productivity and rest. We can work to change how we think and what we feel when we encounter a barrier for rest one of those systems puts up. We can change how we think and feel when we encounter a promotion of burnout one of those structures amplify, right? We cannot work to change these systems and structures if we are burnout, if we are not resting. We have to work to undo our unhelpful beliefs first in order to rest more, in order to change our relationship with productivity. And before we talk about the how to do that, I just want you to understand a little bit how these unconscious beliefs impact us individually. So the impact of our beliefs. Many of us, unknowingly, spend our lives chasing productivity. We withhold allowing ourselves to feel proud of ourselves, to feel good about ourselves, and to feel accomplished. We have been taught that productivity will make us feel good, it will make us matter, it will measure our worthiness, it will solve our problems, but that's not true. What creates the way we feel about ourselves is the way we think about ourselves, is what we believe about ourselves. Completing 4 out of 6 things on your to-do list does not create the way you feel. What makes you feel terrible about yourself is telling yourself you didn't do enough, not that you only got 4 things done. You could complete those 4 out of 6 items and tell yourself you're so proud of that hard work and that's great, you have 4 less things to do, and you'd feel completely different. Same scenario, both completed 4 things, different feelings. Because things, actions don't create how you feel. How you think, how you talk to yourself, what you believe about yourself creates your feelings. And how we think not only creates our feelings, but drives our actions and the results in our lives. If we believe being productive, getting everything on our to-do list done, and achieving all the external accomplishments will solve our problems, will eliminate our negative emotions, will prove we're worthy, or provide us validation for being who we are, then we are creating the result of constantly chasing something that no one and nothing outside of us can provide. What makes us matter and worthy is being born, is being a human here on earth. Your worth as a human does not change dependent on what you do or don't do. Period. It just doesn't. That's a lie capitalism and other systems of oppression have fed many of us. We also are constantly telling ourselves, either explicitly or implicitly, that we are not doing enough. The belief we are never or rarely doing enough creates internal shame and judgment and rejection of ourselves and what we have done. It actually leads to doing less of what we truly want to do and more of what we truly don't want to do. It leads us to withholding rest from ourselves because we believe rest can't happen until we've done enough. And because we believe we haven't done enough, we don't rest, resulting in burnout. Enough is arbitrary, it's undefined, and it's subjective. When we're constantly telling ourselves that we're not doing enough, we end up translating that belief, not from doing, to then being, that we're not being enough. And then we believe we're not worthy or deserving of rest, of celebration, of opportunities, of jobs, of companionship, of a raise, whatever it is. As a result, we then hustle to prove our worth. We think we can measure productivity as a proxy for our worth. We tell ourselves that if we are productive enough, or once we achieve something extraordinary, then we'll allow ourselves to rest. Then we will believe we're enough. Then we'll love ourselves. Then we'll be infinitely happy. Rest has become an experience of restriction rather than abundance. Rest is treated as a rare commodity that must be given rather than a state we can create consistently for ourselves. Rest has become an exotic destination rather than an experience in our everyday lives. Rest has become reserved for the deserving and the worthy. What I'm showing here on the screen is a balance. What you see is there's a tilted line. On the left, there's a blue arrow going down and the word productivity. And on the right, there's a blue arrow going up and the word rest. This is what many of us thinks will happen when we prioritize rest. That if we put rest first, what we've been told is our productivity will go down. And I'm going to guess most of you believe this on some level. That if resting becomes your default rather than hustling to be productive, you'll get less done. But what I want to show you and what's popping up here on top of this balance is a big red X, essentially. Because that's not true. Rest is actually the most productive thing you can do. And why is that? Because it gives your brain and your body consistent and stable fuel and energy to be effective and be efficient. The impact of our beliefs when we think that rest comes second. So what's on the screen is a circle, and there's 5 boxes. The first is worth hustle. That leads to stress, that leads to burnout, that finally leads to rest, and then the repeat. When we don't prioritize and center rest in this cycle, this is what we get. And we have to remember, the systems I've mentioned, capitalism, patriarchy, white supremacy, and many others, they send messages around productivity and rest as a tool to ensure some people burn out and quit and don't take up space. That's what those systems are designed to do. And the messages and input and reinforcements we get about productivity as a measure of worth and rest as an earned reward directly contribute to that. So this is the cycle many of us unknowingly find ourselves in. And what's the result? Do you like what's being created? A cycle of stress, burnout, finally allowing yourself to rest and repeat. Often this looks like working ourselves constantly, not taking lunch breaks, not sleeping enough, pushing ourselves, creating stress, burning out, finally allowing ourselves to rest, either after we complete something really big we've pushed really hard to do, or when we just can't keep going anymore. And after that brief rest, we start all over again. How is this an efficient system for getting things done? I don't think it is. The thoughts and beliefs we have about rest and productivity are not objective facts. They're not universal truths. But if you believe them, you do create that result in your life. So, what if our experience of rest could be different? What could rest look like? So what's on the screen here is the same cycle, but 5 different steps. This rest cycle includes intentional rest, leading to deepening relationship with yourself, to creating joy and fulfillment, leading to living purposefully, and then repeating. So the rest cycle looks like being intentional with rest first, meaning redefining how what you do gives you mental or physical rest, planning your rest in advance, which leads to deepening a relationship with yourself. Prioritizing rest tells yourself that you and not things are the priority. Not aiming to be perfect and planning your rest, and just being honest with yourself when you need to adjust the plan and when you need rest, and giving it to yourself builds integrity with yourself, builds trust with yourself. The outcome of that is more joy and fulfillment in all that you do and how you spend your time. And the outcome of that is living purposely, with intent, not unintentionally. Redefining rest for yourself means rebuilding your relationship with yourself and starting to treat yourself with love and stop waiting for the external world to do that. Prioritizing rest means changing how we prioritize our life. Shifting from a life where we define ourselves by the hustle and what we do or don't do, to where we define ourselves by the joy and fulfillment we cultivate. Resting is giving your mind and body what it needs on a consistent basis so you can be present and centered. Resting from a place of intention rather than reaction is self-love. So the question I always get then is like, well, when do I get all that stuff done? This is the same slide, but between the 5 steps in the arrow that connects them, you see small little blue dots. The question we should work to override is, well, when do we get it all done? The question now we should be asking ourselves, how do we cultivate joy and fulfillment in our lives? And how often are we living purposely? There are things you're going to decide to get done in your life, from homework to getting a degree, to emailing your boss back, finishing an evaluation plan, getting the kids to bed, walking the dog, calling the repair person, cooking dinner, so on. All those blue dots I mentioned, that's where all of that happens. Do you notice how it's not the focus or the center? How it doesn't define our lives? Rest is not a reward for productivity. Productivity is an outcome of how you practice rest. Our thoughts are not truths. These unconscious beliefs we have, these messages we receive, we can work to undo them. We can work to undo the internalization of these messages. You are intrinsically worthy just for being born, just for being a human here on earth. You can do nothing all day, every day, and still be worthy. The rest of the session, we're going to be focusing on redefining rest only. Your definition of productivity will come, but the definition of rest and the practice of it has to come first, because we have been so socialized to focus and narrow in on productivity. We have to flip that switch and center rest to truly transform our experience. So rest is what you give your mind or body on a continuous basis as an act of self-love and gratitude. And this is not another area to try to become perfect in. The concept of perfection itself is tied to the belief that productivity is what makes us worthy. And what we're doing here is undoing that. Rest is intentional and personal to you. Rest is different for everyone. When we start to redefine rest for ourselves, the way in which we see ourselves changes completely. the way in which we see our contributions to the world changes, and how we experience and walk through our life truly transforms. When we go from believing rest is scarce and it must be given to us, to believing rest is abundant and determined by us, we truly take control of our lives. And only then can we determine what we want for life in our life. How can you start redefining rest for yourself? What if rest was not an action or a specific set of actions? What if rest was a mindset? What if rest was a thought or a set of thoughts that create an experience of rest? What if it didn't matter what you were doing, your brain could be at rest? How to redefine rest. Rest can be anything you give your mind or body in response to what your mind or body needs at any time, planned, or in the moment. In order to do this, you have to become better friends with your mind and your body. Have to get to know your mind. When does it operate best? Under what conditions? What does it enjoy? What drains it? How long of a period does it function optimally and then need a break? Same with your body. What is the best fuel for your body? What movements does your body enjoy? How often and how long? When does your body function best? How does your body communicate with you? Understanding what your mind and body needs and what's rest to you in your mind and body is personal. It's unique. It's specific. What's rest to one person may not be rest to another, and you get to decide what's rest for you. And once you get to know your mind and body on an intimate level, you get to be the one to gift yourself rest, not just once in a while, but every day, multiple times a day. Redefining rest really means understanding that rest is an everyday occurrence and believing in the practice of rest. Once you begin practicing rest in this way, you'll see that everything you do with more efficiency and more ease. Your brain is more creative. The love for yourself and your body grows, and you begin to prioritize what matters most to you rather than what you think matters most to the world. So with that, we're going to move on to activity 2. Let me check my time here. Okay, I think we're good. So in the same, I see there's some stuff in the chat. I'll get to that in a second. In the same workbook, now we're going to do activity 2. It's pages 4 through 5. Again, I'm so sorry for the page numbers. There's no right or wrong answer here. Just answer the questions, brain dump after the information you just received. And it's okay if you don't agree with everything I said, or it's breaking your brain, or you want to argue. That's totally okay. So let me just check, make sure there's no question. Okay, it looks like I got to all the questions and comments. So we'll go into doing the activity, give you about 5 to 7 minutes again, and then we'll come back together and do a couple wrap up things and discussion. Go ahead and get started. Okay, about a minute to wrap up where you are. If you don't finish the worksheet, that's fine. You can always do it later. Okay, so folks can stop where they're at. Again, if you haven't finished, that's okay. So we have a little less than 30 minutes left. What we're going to do next is go into breakout rooms. Now, I know many people, when there's breakout rooms, particularly at the end, drop off. I really want to encourage you to stick around, because when we're working to rewire our brains, right, to change our beliefs and how we're thinking, it's really useful to share in dialogue and community about what we've noticed and about our takeaways. It really helps our brain, because we're humans like to socialize, right? Like, we do like to hear what others think, and it does, as you can see, impact us. So when you have conversations that it centers around helping us redefine rest, that can be really useful. So we're going to go into breakout rooms just for about, I believe, 10 minutes. Then we're going to come back and share reflections, answer questions, and then I'm going to share some additional resources and tools that you can use to continue this work moving forward. So let me share what the questions are, and I can also type them in the chat as well. But in your groups, chat a little bit about what your experience was like completing the activities, how your life would be different if you prioritized rest, and what if you had any key takeaways or aha moments. So I think Lisa's going to put you in rooms, and we'll do it for, I think, about 10 minutes should work, Lisa.
Great. I'm going to do that now, and we'll give a 1-minute warning when we're bringing everyone back.
All right. You're on mute, Lisa.
I'm just making sure everybody is in a room with others.
I'm just going to broadcast the questions to them really quick.
Okay.
Thanks for that feedback. It's sometimes hard to know when you're not in a physical room what the reactions are. And then when you see the chat, it's like, are those questions or those? Welcome back, everyone. We have some more folks coming in. So what we're going to do is we're just going to share some reflection. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then before you all go, I'd love to share additional resources. So you're free. We're not going to do the by breakout group, just individually. If you'd like to share anything, you're free to either type in the chat or unmute yourselves and share. I'd love to hear any reflections or any questions you have. You can just go ahead, and then I think Denora, correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, thanks.
That.
Yeah, for me, I found that, oops, sorry, I just hit something unintentionally. what I found difficult was kind of defining rest in the context of the question, because, well, if I'm resting all the time, what am I doing? So to prioritize it in the decision making, it would be helpful for me is if you gave an example. Like if you had, here's Jane Doe, and here's how she approaches things, and what if she thought about it this way, and then reconstructed her approach with these thoughts, or how, if you could give examples, I think it would help, as I was saying to my group, like give us a few breadcrumbs.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I want to point out what's underneath that. And it's not just you, I think it's many of us, is the way we think about these things is it's prescriptive, right? And so it is really challenging when we're pushed to say, here's a blank canvas. What do you want to define rest as? So I actually would encourage you to get curious, like, why is this question hard for me? Why is envisioning what would be restful for me difficult? Because it's in you. You know what rest would be for you and what you would want. It might be hard to bring that up, but I actually find it more curious that our brains are really resistant to that and that potential. And that could be because of how we've been socialized in our belief, could be because it feels like such a far differing from our current belief. So I would actually, instead of prescribing what it might look like, encourage anyone who's struggling with that to get curious of, why is answering this so challenging? Why do I want an example? Why do I maybe not trust myself? Or why do, just get curious with yourself, understand why your brain might be struggling. That was a great question.
I came up with an idea for it, which is like, if there's anything, I mean, not so much the idea for changing, I should be productive and get all these things done, but anything that I'm doing, focusing on what I enjoy about it, or if there's something that I'm not really excited about doing, is there a way for me to come up with a way where it's where I can enjoy it more, and it's less work for my brain? Essentially, it's less stressful for me. Like if, I feel like I have to do this for, and it has to have this kind of an outcome. I mean, I could let go of the pressure to have a certain outcome maybe, and focus on what about it can I actually find enjoyable. So it essentially reducing my feeling of stress around the thing that I need to do. So it's kind of like the mindset, like what you were saying in terms of the mindset of being, loving yourself, kindness, coming from a sort of a yoga perspective of contentment, rather than, and it doesn't mean you don't ever strive. And I think that's part of the question too, striving, never strive, you never strive, or how do you balance rest and striving? So anyway, I know that's I've said a lot, but
I just want to point out the beginning of what you just shared, you answered your own question, but then we confuse ourselves by getting into, get away from just centering on like, this is what I want rest to be. And there's other things to figure out. Like this is new for all of us, but I want to tell you and everyone else, like what you just displayed, you have the answer, right? You created it. Maybe it's like, maybe this is the answer. I don't know, but you have it, right? So that was great. I just want to acknowledge that. Michelle, I think you're raising your hand.
This was a very timely exercise for me, so thank you in advance for that. Earlier this week, it's been one of those weeks where it was like back to back to back, both during work hours and like also in my personal life, to the point where I was like rushing home, walking home, and I'm like walking super fast because I've got 5 minutes to be home, and then I got to be on the phone with somebody, and it was super stressed out. And I just had this moment of like, why am I living my life this way? Like, no matter what, I'm going to have to walk from point A to point B. Why did I put something so close that I now cannot enjoy this walk because I'm so stressed out about getting there on time? Like, why am I structuring my day this way? And one of the things we talked about in our group a lot was like responsibility, this like feeling of responsibility, of duty, of like, saying yes or helping people or getting it done that way. And my homework to myself is just challenging myself to change my approach. And even if I have to do the same things, creating enough space in those things so that I can approach it with rest as a part of it, versus like feeling like I have to just consistently be running and running and running and running. And I'm like, oh, lovely to chat. I gotta go. I got another one. Talk to you later. And trying to just reformat the way I organize things.
Yeah, great reflection. I want to say, you're always saying no to someone. And often we're saying no to ourselves. So in your scenario, when you said yes to setting something up right after, you're saying no to giving yourself a break. We often focus on needing or feeling like we need to say yes, but we're forgetting when we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else, and often it's ourself. I'm going to go to the chat real quick, and then Andrea, I'll come to you. Oh, looks like no question. So Andrea, correct me if I'm wrong.
I was just going to piggyback a little bit on Michelle's comment about the responsibility piece, because you said something that really struck me about how, particularly in student services, but I'm sure it's true across many, many job families, we feel this like innate need to save the university, make sure the university doesn't get in trouble, fix things, like, and then that really resonated for me in a way that made me realize I really hold a lot more responsibility than I ought to for making sure the university doesn't get in trouble, making sure we, it's not my fault that there's not enough staffing in other areas. It's not my fault that compliance isn't where it should be, but those are the sort of things that we can load on ourselves. And then that really contributes to this sense of total overwhelm.
Yeah.
So thank you for pointing that out. As a capitalist and a neoliberalist system, that was very helpful to think of it that way too.
Yeah, and I think what happens is we take on the responsibility of the system, right? It is the system. The outcome of the way the system is now is we're understaffed, but then we feel like we have to take on that responsibility. And so the example I use is with vacation often, right? So within the university context, many of us feel like there's not enough staff, we can't take a vacation, blah, blah, blah. But when we think about it that way, it makes it so we have no empowerment at all. But you still have the choice to use your PTO days. Actually, that's in your legal right. Now, the system could change, right? Like in Finland, you get paid more when you use your vacation day to incentivize going on vacation, right? So the system could change and that would help us and that would be great. But in the meantime, take your vacation day, use the power you have, right? And so oftentimes we feel it's our responsibility to do what the system should be doing. And then we're saying yes to the system and no to ourselves. So that was a great point.
I had an idea during the discussion about false rest, and just the stuff that triggers our dopamine centers, and like Facebook, white sugar, alcohol, and you can spend an hour on Facebook and realize I didn't want to do that. This isn't resting me. This isn't giving me meaning. So I think it's important to discriminate what rest really is.
Yes, great point. And actually, I've heard it be called false pleasure because of the dopamine. So what happens when we, get a pleasure, we get dopamine release. But something like Facebook, it induces so much, we get addicted and it becomes like a false pleasure. And yes, Stephen, I think you're right. I think many of us try to use it as rest. So that's a great point. Any other, I'm going to put really quickly, but we still have a few minutes for questions or comments, just so if folks have to jump off, they can get this. So ways to continue to learn these tools. As Lisa said, I'm leaving the university to do this full time because as you probably all saw, this is really needed. So I have a podcast, Thoughts Are Your Cause, completely free that you can listen to. I also have a class, a course, it's self-directed on stressing less and doing more of what you love, actually, not doing more of productivity. And then, my website and Instagram. So just for folks, if you do want to continue. Any other questions or comments? Allison put into the chat, the way the departmental budgeting works, they get money back when employees take vacation. We let folks know that because they're more willing to take vacation if they understand that it helps their team with finances. Interesting. Shauna.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Shauna raised her hand.
Marissa, thank you so much. Mind, blown. Wondering if what your thoughts are on the difference or not difference of rest and relaxation. Because I keep falling back to, is that it is the things that I think of in terms of what I do to relax. Maybe that I should think about that differently in terms of what it means to be at rest. I don't know.
What do you think? What do you think the answer is?
I don't know. I have to think about it.
Yeah. I would actually get curious, Shauna, why your brain is fixated on distinguishing between rest and relaxation. I would guess many of our brains do this is so you can categorize what you can or cannot do and how much time can go to each.
Right. Or what
That would be my
counts,
guess. Yes.
You
Or
know.
what counts.
Right.
Right. Deferring to, I need an example or I need approved things we can do, or like what is rest, rather than like giving yourself full permission to decide for yourself.
Or maybe thinking that like, yeah, relaxation is tied to an activity. Like that's something I do to relax, and maybe I need to think about anyways, and maybe that is what it is or whatever. And then rest is a different sort of state of mind, to your point about it not being tied to some sort of activity that we consider productive.
Yeah, I would just get curious why your brain wants to distinguish between the two. Yeah. Any other, I know folks have to jump off, comments or questions. This is great questions and reflections.
Looks like we have lots of great kudos, and I also want to add that I put Marissa's contact information in the chat, along with a link to the deck. I will also send all of this out by email, and there's a link to the evaluation. We really appreciate your feedback, and there's a link to upcoming workshops. So I want to give a big shout out to Marissa. Thank you so much, Marissa, for taking time here in your final days at UC Berkeley to share your expertise. And this is just such great content. Really appreciate your coaching approach to help us think about what our definitions are. And just even from this space and the way that you've guided us, I feel more relaxed. So thank you. Thank you all for being here and for your engagement and questions and comments. And I will email you with all the information. We hope that you have a great afternoon and that you can apply these wonderful tools and strategies.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate everyone's participation.